Uh, Hello, and this is Wrike Tech Club, and today we're going to talk about some sophisticated things like technical debt. And today we have a lot of guests, and I'm here. I'm your lovely MC. Hi, my name is Evgeny, and I'm Kot, and I will introduce our guests today one by one. So let's start from Pavol. Hi, Pavol.
Hi, Evgeny.
Yeah, Pavol is a software architect at Komercni, sorry, Banka, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and you can talk a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I work as a software architect in internet and mobile banking, and the topic of technical debt is kind of important, I think, for everybody in IT. And I'm very happy. I thank you for inviting me, and looking forward to this discussion.
Thanks, Pavel, to be here. And by the way, dear chat, if you are live, please put something, I don't know, any emoji or anything in chat, because how do we know this? Everything is online, and we don't know. I'm not sure in our existence here. So yeah, be active. Our next guest is Shelley. Hi, Shelley.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Awesome, and I hope that we will spend next 1 or so hour, and it's gonna be better. So Shelley is manager of software engineering at Red Hat.
Yes, indeed, and I'm a technical lead at the Eclipse Adoptium project as well. So very happy to talk about technical debt with this great panel you've assembled.
Yeah, we will talk about technical debt right now. And our next guest is Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hello, guys.
Nick, yeah, no, I have a plan here. And Nick is managing partner and solution architect at Applifting.
Yeah, hello, guys. I'm a solution architect in Applifting. I do have enterprise department on my responsibilities. So we delivering and developing solution for the enterprise customers in our department. So we have a lot of experience with handling multiple projects in a really diverse environment, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Nick. And our last guest for today is Denis. Hi, Denis.
Hello.
And Denis is a backend manager at Wrike, and we are in the Wrike Tech Club, so really convenient. So, Denis, what do you do?
Yeah, hi there. I do a lot of stuff. So first of all, I'm responsible for several teams at Wrike. So I lead our developers to their next path in career, and I build engineering culture here. And also I'm involved in different projects that improves our department from technical or people point of view.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. And today we're going to talk about technical debt, obviously. And this discussion is really important, but let's begin from simple question. So what is technical debt? Who wants to be? Actually, by the way, we don't have exact plan or anything or script or something like this. So we don't have bow ties or something like this. What is technical debt?
Who wants to jump in first? Technical debt is, technical debt is like any other debt. You make a choice to borrow and you make it for any number of reasons. It might be for a reason that you want to go faster or get something released quicker to the public. And you make a choice to do something in maybe a less than optimal way. And if you continue to do that over time, the debt accumulates and it becomes harder and harder to do anything. That's one way that I would define it.
Well, I would like to add that there's a very nice definition, Shelley, actually, but and I'd like that once the technical debt accumulates a lot, you really end up like rewriting the whole application. So there is a deadline And the funny thing about that technical debt is that even though your application today got basically no technical debt because it's new, I mean, it can be really obsolete tomorrow, and you don't have to do anything. And as an example, I would like to say, do you remember Adobe Flash? It was really discontinued, and lots of applications, very nice applications with nice architecture and everything, were obsolete from day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree here, and I consider technical debt as a necessary evil that we have to deal with. I absolutely agree that even if you do everything correctly, if you hired best engineers and you give them all time of the universe, technical debt anyway will appear on your project and you have to deal with it. And the biggest problem appears when you have to continue development of the feature which is considered technical debt. And one day, as was already mentioned, you have to burn it all down and create it from scratch.
Yeah.
Nick, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I'm happy. Well, wait, give me a second to open a Google. But like, I have a little bit of a more philosophical approach to this, like, to this definition. It's like technical debt is when you borrowing time from the future to actually pay it off with the interest again in the future. So you want to make something like faster right now, but more than when you need to spend time to fix it or to resolve this borrowing of time.
And and Milan saying that the problem is that sometimes you make a debt without being aware of it. But actually, I am frankly speaking, I'm not a backend developer. I was like something like 8 years ago for C#. But I thought that and by the way, most of us today, most of our guests today are using Java as a main language. So I thought that Java cannot, it's not a JavaScript, right? It's not a front end that's when you just choose something and it's already obsolete because like it's front end, it's JavaScript. But for Java, come on, it's there for 25 years. Nothing new, not nothing, but not that much changing. Is that true, or it's not like this?
Well, actually,
yeah, sorry,
okay.
Pavol, continue. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, actually, nobody's using pure Java. Basically, you always needs to use at least Spring or J2E or lots of libraries, and those libraries are getting obsolete quite often. And also, you got actually technical debt got a different level. You can have a technical debt on the level of single commit or a component or even a user story from the product owner view. Let's say that the business decided to go with quick and dirty and buy something buy some legacy stuff because it's cheap, and thus creating new technical debt. The same you can have with the lack of documentation. It's also a technical debt, or you can argue, I mean, it's debt, not really technical. But technical debt can exist on the level of architecture. If you choose a programming language which got not good perspective, it's also technical debt. I mean, it got really various points.
Yeah, and our and Yermek saying that is technical debt depend on your language of choice. I don't know.
I cannot hear to this question. So basically, even if you decided to do everything in pure Java or any other programming language, it's not an aspect of language, because language is kind of tool like a framework, which were mentioned before. But what you do in Java also may be technical debt. For instance, your developer or you as a developer, you implemented the feature and it took a week to do it. And in a week, you understand that you will definitely do it another way. So you learned a lot and know now how to do it better. So, and you were doing your best trying to do that during the implementation, but one day you realize that it could be better. or another situation. For instance, you implemented the feature and it worked well for 3 years, perfect feature. But one day your product owner comes to you and says, okay, we need another one. We need to change something. We need to recreate it. We have different priorities, and that's why well-written code becomes technical debt, because any change may cause a very huge refactoring here, and basically should cause in order to keep it updated.
Yeah, I agree there. And I have an example. So when we have tests we use to verify the Java language itself. And some of them were written 2 decades ago, and they are still valid and they still can help find defects. But back when they were written, they were in older frameworks that aren't easily automatable. So as time passes, new requirement comes in, which is we want to automate things. And that new requirement means we need to modernize or update things in a way. So the test itself might be well written, but it needs new things added. So, but is it technical debt? It is to our project if there's work to be done to maintain old stuff. And we have to lift ourselves up out of that maintenance work.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, sorry, I just wanted to ask a question to Shelley, because Shelley works or worked, correct me if I'm wrong, on OpenJDK. And the thing is that when you make a product for other developers, you should think about backward compatibility. Of course, for example, for any SaaS platform, it is really rare that you support versions, usually like up-to-date version, like Chrome. It's like your browser. But what about product like yours, OpenJDK or something, that when you should support versions back in a day, like 5 years old or something like this?
Right. So there's the notion of deprecating things, and you hope that your consumers or customers will follow. But they don't always. There's there's the long tail of service and support that you need to be able to do. And so as something grows in its age, that long tail becomes possibly painful to continue to support. So there's always an effort to move people up to the latest versions. It's not always going to be possible. There are always going to be consumers on that tail end that you have to support, and you either do it try to be smart about how you do that so that it doesn't cost your team a lot of time, but yeah, there's no way around it as far as for the things that I have worked on.
And I believe almost the same for Pavol, for you, because banks, they usually support like clients with older clients version, or like for your backend. Is that true or no?
Well, yes, it is very visible for mobile application, for example. With internet banking, it is quite okay because you got still just one version of the web banking. But with mobiles, I mean, we are really we cannot force users to upgrade mobile devices. I mean, many of users use very slow connection. They are using really obsolete versions of operating systems, and we always have to like watch for backward compatibility. And also some versions of Android, for example, they got security issues. So we need to have a mechanism how to prevent such users with such devices to log into the mobile banking.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. And yeah, I think we will slowly try to explain how to deal with this kind of situations. But Denis, I think for like SaaS platform as Wrike, this tail of old clients is not a big problem, or yes or no, or we have like backend, you have to support many like obsolete or like old clients.
Well, it depends. If we are talking about our own application, which is SaaS, we have our own backend, our own front end. It's not a problem in most of the cases. But if we, let's say, have open API, we got all the problems that were mentioned. So we have to support our clients. We have to support previous version. We have to support backward compatibility. And if we are integrating with some external systems, this is the same situation, but from both of the sides.
Mm-hmm. I see. And the same question for Nick, because Nick, for you, I think you have. Do you have support from client? Okay, let's cancel it. The question is.
Tell me the question, Evgeny.
Yeah, the question is. I don't know for your company, but sometimes clients, they don't need support. They will support something that you wrote for them by their own, or slash they need some MVP. They need just like one version and that's it. Or what is your experience with this long tail of support?
Yeah. I do get your question, Evgeny. Well, the thing is, we do provide support for sure. We do have long-term projects, like projects that run for 5, 6, 7 years already, like from the starting of our company. We also working with start companies with MVPs. We also working with enterprise partners, like we like with banks, like really into working with Erste and so on. So we have actually a really wide spectrum of different projects in a different environments and in different needs, and it's really interesting to observe how actually in a different environment such this problem is being solved. So like one of my interesting observations is, for example, notion of technical debt for, let's say, a startup or business is a bit of a different thing, because you don't actually even have to think about such concept about technical debt. The thing is, technical debt is something you need to pay in the future, but your startup may fail with a chance of 99%. So what you will pay when you will fail. That's one aspect of it. On another aspect, like guys were saying that, for example, Pavol was telling about the mobile application and KD, is you have like really old systems, systems that running for a large amount of customers, so large groups of customers for a long amount of time, and you need to support them, especially, for example, the core systems in banking. But it's not already, to me, it's not already a technical debt. This is a choice. This is a choice that you need to make to enable this feature for your customers. Like it could be some security or compliance features related to your core systems in banking, or it could be the fact that some of your customers, a large group of your customers, using Android 3.2, but this is your customer, so it's not like a technical debt anymore. This is like restrictions in which you're working and in which your solution architecture must account with.
Nick, thank you for saying that, because you mentioned core system at bank, and a funny thing about them is that they exist. They are extremely old. I'm not sure if you are aware of that, but in Czech Republic, I mean, they are decades old. And the funny thing is that they got tremendous amount of technical debt, and they are often written in COBOL. And try to find COBOL developers on this current market. So it's a huge technical debt, and it needs to be solved, and it really costs like billions of Czech crowns to replace core system within the bank. But every bank in Czech Republic will have to do that sooner or later.
Well, the definite aspect of it. If like the system is written in a language that does not support, it's not supported by market anymore. This is a technical debt. You need to resolve it. What I'm talking about is like things that just have to be in play there, and we just make peace with that. Like this is also fine. Core systems, it's not so dynamic as, let's say, a front-end or business-facing application. They usually have a tendency to be more solid for large amount of reasons. But yeah, like let's say in 10 years, we also will need to find another way to attract front-end developers to do this obsolete React and Next.js. That's eventually going to happen.
Yeah, front-end. And Yermik is saying that tech debt is a product of deadlines pressure, or am I wrong? But let's talk a little bit, not about the reasons why we have technical debt, but what's the problem in it? Because looks like tech debt is some kind of like unholy grail of development, and you cannot avoid it, like sunset or something like this. But what's the main problem? Why we should eliminate it or work on that?
I think we need to work each iteration that we have to reduce some technical debt, because if you don't, it continues to accumulate to a point where you become paralyzed and you can't easily do anything in your project. So if you make a plan that each iteration you take one item and resolve it, that reduces the technical debt, it can't accumulate to the point where you have a paralysis in your project, which you don't want, because then, as mentioned before, if you get to that point, you're going to have to burn everything down and start again, which is the cost you're paying to pay off that debt.
Yes, definitely. I'd like to add that firstly, you need to acknowledge that, because that's probably the biggest issue. I mean, to acknowledge that there is a technical debt, to explain to the business, like, what's the technical debt? Why should I care about that? And stop ignoring that. I mean, explain the consequences of ignoring the technical debt. Once you got acknowledgement, then you can really move to the sanitization of technical debt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I also would like to add here. So basically, not all of the technical debt is produced by like deadlines or delivery function. So basically, delivery function produces prudent and deliberate technical debt. So you know that you created. You know that you're in a hurry. You have to descope something. You have to create some shortcuts, cut corners, and stuff like that. And you can deal with it because it's visible for you. You can plan it for future if you argument well enough. The worst situation when you don't understand that you do technical debt. For instance, it was a good example with startup. So we have to deliver our value, so we will not spend much time on design and stuff like that. But if you did the wrong design, you will pay these interest payments really fast. So this reckless technical debt is not something you would like to have in your company, and it is better to keep an eye on it, track it, and keep it at least in your mind, and better in your task manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love online when you don't know what's happening because it's not non-verbal signs that someone wanted to say something. Nick, you would like to say something?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would agree with Denis completely. Well, I will probably add my 5 cents, and like maybe a bit for the sake of arguing. From my perspective, sometimes actually technical debt could be self-inflicted. We actually quite often imagine, quite often IT guys or tech guys, don't get me wrong, I'm a developer myself, taking a tech debt as something forced by business or by pressuring from the deadlines or the lack of time of implementing certain features. That's true, that's for a certain degree, that's true. But there is 2 aspects to it. Sometimes we actually don't know enough experience to make a right decision at this point. It's actually, I think Daniel was also mentioning, and we inflicted on ourselves, and in the later stages, we're starting to understand that this architectural technical decision was bad. That's one example of it. And a second, quite often we as a dev, we actually really like to ride on waves of a hype regarding the latest technology and a need of updating everything to the latest possible version ever. But the question always is, does it have any value to your business? Does it provide any real benefits? Is it a real technical debt? Or is it just my pure nonsense of working not with a, let's say, pure, I don't know, Java versus 9 versus Java versus 11? Do I need it? A lot of banks are actually completely fine with using Java 6. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just like, for the sake of arguing.
Yeah. And by the way, it leads us, so sometimes when we're saying like technical debt, it is always who to blame. And sometimes it's like a business. Those business guys, they force us to write shitty code, and our managers, they literally stand behind us and like, okay, this please write this shitty code right now. But it's looks like it's not true. And again, question to Shelley, because you are running open source community and open source, and you don't have like business suit guys.
That's right. I have no business. That isn't quite true, but you're right. I don't have necessarily the same structure as if someone reported to me directly and I could reward or punish different behavior. But I think we all still have the same issue. So one of the things that came up just previous here is, well, what is technical debt? And actually, we're all to share in it. It's not a business person saying, do this, write that shitty code, and you're frantically writing as bad a code as you can. It comes from a lot of reasons, I think. I guess the point is, if you see that there is friction and difficulty in how you're working and what processes you have, you know that you've accumulated some debt, right? So the way I look at it at the open source project is anything that costs, I look at what costs us the most time and what's the most painful things that we have to do to run the show. And if there are things like that, we can then put a focus on improving them. And that's typically then the same thing as reducing technical debt. And however we got there doesn't really matter. We're there and we have to improve it. So from my perspective, I look at those, I measure, we take measurements and metrics to say, oh, it should only be one step to be able to do this task, but somehow it's 10 steps. And then reduce, look at ways to reduce, make a plan, and then start improving this situation. But yeah, I think the other thing that causes some of this problem, and sorry for taking the long answer here, but as a software industry, we reward people who innovate and create new things and probably don't reward as much. What's really spectacular is when someone improves the current situation rather than go off and build something new that's going to cost. And typically they build something and the technical debt goes to some other team, making their lives unhappy. So we should, as a software industry and a management chain, be rewarding the right things, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is very, very true. I mean, it really depends on the type of the project. I mean, if you got temporary application, you really don't have to take care of the technical debt at all. You just do that quick and dirty, and it will comply with all the business requirements, and you're fine. If you got greenfield applications, what you need to do is kind of embrace refactoring and testing. I mean, you develop the business requirement according to business requirements. Then after some time, you do some refactoring because you start to notice that it's getting dark, and you need to really do some changes around to make it more convenient for development. And also you need to write unit tests to make sure that this refactoring is kind of easy. That's for the new application, greenfield. If you got legacy application, what you should really focus is really identifying the most pain points, most visible pain points, and you need to stop producing new technical debt. You need to measure it and make sure that there is no new one, and make sure that you can really find a way how to sanitize the old one.
And I will ask Pavol a really stupid question. Yeah. So for me, for a bank, for financial industry, the quality of the code is should be one of the highest, because it's like money, it's security, and this is for everyone this is really important. But banks and the second idea is that pressure of the business in terms of new features is not that high, because most of the clients, they prefer, okay, maybe this for this bank application is not that cool, but this is really reliable, and the percentage like loan is really good, and the mortgage really good, and other stuff. So is in your case technical debt and pressure of the business is not that high because you have to build, and everyone from the business understands that you have to invest in the security and reliability and other stuff.
Yes, as a bank, we got very strong security department. So they got lots of requirements. They are actually very skilled guys, and they are participating in basically all the design, all the architecture we're doing for the new bank, and also for the old one. I mean, at the moment we are preparing the new internet and mobile banking, and this is really resonating there. So focus on the security is definitely there. But in a banking environment, we got like more than 1,000 various applications. Not all of them are critical. Not all of them are. I mean, for example, a transactional system is totally critical. So any maintenance cost necessary should be really put there if needed. But if you got a system, for example, for I don't know, some non-business critical thing, HR, for example, within the bank, so it's not that important. I mean, I can imagine. No offense to the developers there, that it may have some acknowledgeable technical debt, and will be okay. Bank got still limited resources and needs to prioritize.
And Nick, I believe, like, again, this is kind of stupid question from me. So do you, and in your case, like time equals money, and this client's money, and I from my like newbie point of view, like in your case, pressure from the business is the highest because like, hey, faster, or it's not true.
That's actually not the case at all, Evgeny. It's again, it's really depends on a project and a customers and all partners we're working with. We're also working with banks. We're also working with a modern digital banking solution, and we're also working with the startups. And actually, pressure on like go, deliver, like forget about anything else is usually actually coming from the startup world. And there's two reasons for that. Usually, people who like starting a new business is rarely well educated regarding the software processes and like what is even mean having a technical debt and how is this thing is even working, so they don't even understand it physically. And then as the budget is really limited, and you need to be on the market like really fast. On the other hand, like technical debt, like I was mentioning before, it's really not a concern there, to be honest. On a second grade, when you're working with some like fintech solution, like a new digital banking solution, the guys there like we're cooperating really precisely. Like we're trying to follow like the standard protocols of this bank, or like be aligned regarding the technology, quality, speed, and required like amount of effort to deliver these features. It depends. We also have to adjust to the needs of a given situation.
And Denis, what? Because looks like you are kind of in the middle of the situation. What can you say about the pressure of the business, and like, is there such thing at Wrike? You're muted. Actually, always when I have to say it, I put some mark on the wall.
Okay. So before I answer this question, I would like to get back to the idea that Shelley brought up about metrics. And basically, from my point of view, it's one of the most valuable things that you have in your business. Actually, I said you have no business, but anyway, metrics basically says you when you should act. So what should be changed, and just ideas of engineers. Oh, I want to refactor feature X, or I want to redo class Z. It's not the case. It has no argumentation on that. And it's hard to convince our business that we really need it. So basically, talking about the pressure, of course, goal of product company is development of the product. So frankly speaking, we are not paid for writing tests or stuff like that. We are paid for delivering new features, and it is the goal of product teams that we have at Wrike. But at the same time, we have to deal with all the codes that we write today. We have to deal with that many years after. And as IT company, we totally understand the cost of redoing stuff and cost of maintenance if we forgot to pay enough attention to architecture or engineering approaches and stuff like that. And that's why we invest a lot into the quality of our code of our solution on backend. We even have a static analyzer of our code, which suggests us some edits that, okay, this code doesn't fit some rules that were agreed on backend, so you have to change it. You can't release it with this, it's not a bug, but with this way of implementation. And I believe it is common for most of the product companies. They invest a lot into development and they don't want to rebuild it in 2 years. It may happen if we pay not enough attention to the quality of our service.
And you raised really interesting question, and here we can switch to your experience and some concrete examples of. So Denis, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah.
So
basically, yeah.
Yeah. So okay, all of us who have some experience, we have a gut feeling. Okay, this code is smelly, or this project is going down, and we have to rebuild it. But what are concrete or exact metrics we can have in our Java applications or any other applications to understand, okay, technical debt here is big, we should rewrite it, here is okay, or what are the metrics or smells or red flags?
Yeah, I already provided one example with static analyzer of our source code, and it helps us to keep our code style basically in very good shape. And
sorry, I will interrupt you. Is it a statistical analyzing tool something on the market, or it's your own?
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm really not sure. I know that the tool itself, it's not something that we developed, but all the rules, of course, developed by
okay.
us.
Yeah, just to give our listeners some kind of concrete examples.
Yeah, so the name of the tool is PMD. There is no explanation what is PMD. The best explanation that I found was project mess detector, and basically it is project mess detector. And yeah, it is one of the automations that helps us. As I already mentioned, in product companies, we are able to build a good engineering culture that helps us to deal with technical debt. And talking about one of the approaches, we have a local meme here at Wrike, and basically it came from frontend. We have front-end department director, which is Igor Demyanov, and we have a meme, which is Demyanov tax. It's 10% of our time that developers may spend on any technical tasks that they would like to do. So basically, we have this quota of 10% of time that product teams spend not on product tasks, and it has a proper name and like a meme in our company. Yeah, and I believe one of the most common practices working with technical debt in refactorings is Boy Scout rule. So you have to leave the code better than you found it. So I believe it's pretty common, and most of the companies use it.
Okay. Who else can
Okay, I can. So basically, from the static analysis code point of view, we are using Sonar Cube. I mean, I guess it's more convenient for large enterprises where you got. I mean, setting it up, it's not easy. We are using it. We are having enterprise license, which got some advantages. For example, we can do iOS code scans and so on. So this is one of the tools, and actually it incorporates the rules from PMD and find bugs and other tools. But it's not silver bullet. I mean, it gives you some perspective. You can fix some of the rules are basically for the source code on the level of the one class. But it won't help you with, for example, if you got bad design of the component or the whole system and so on. And this it's kind of more difficult to manage. Furthermore, we got some security scanners like OWASP dependency check, which I really recommend. It tells you, after the scanning your code, it tells you like which of your libraries you're using are actually obsolete or got from security point of view. For example, they got some known how to say it, bugs from security point of view, some vulnerabilities. So you should replace them with the newer versions of a different ones. This might be kind of important.
And blue tomato. Okay, someone saying my best code is written with a delete key. Yeah. Okay. Shelley, Nick, maybe.
Yeah, I'll throw in a few other metrics that you can consider. Maybe defect escape analysis. So if a defect goes out, seeing where it could have been first caught, seeing when it was caught, what type of defect was it, how serious was it. So when you look at that kind of stuff, you can figure out how to improve your system a little bit better. Another one would be using a bug prediction algorithm to, this is the smell part. People who have experience can sniff these things out without running a metrics tool because they are watching the project. But if you want a way to have a process that checks this, how many times has a file been changed due to fixing a defect in the last X number of months? Because the more times it's been changed to fix a defect, the more likely it has more defects in it. So there are things like that you could apply. And I would say in that case where you're measuring defects in a file or a component, that's probably starting to call out to say, oh, is the design of this really crappy? Does it need to be redesigned to be better so that it's less filled with defects? So those are a couple of additional metrics that a team or a project could start looking at.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Nick, sorry, before we continue. So Marek is saying that automated tools are really essentials like CheckStyle, SonarCube, WASP third-party libraries analyzer. And yeah, Nick, maybe you can share your experience on that.
Yeah, sure. Static code analysis is really helpful. Like SonarCube is something we're really familiar here. And actually, one of our daughter company, DX Heroes, is also right now working on a cool tool called DX Scanner that wants to also run some smart metrics and make it centralized vision for the team leads, like a monitor for the team leads across the project, what he can see, like how's the quality of code and where is the potential issues, like something like SonarCube, but like more hipstery. This is one thing. But my personal approach, like again, as you can understand from what I'm saying, you have a lot of different approaches and need to support multitude of different businesses. But my personal approach is to technical debt, is to behave it, is to look at it a bit towards like we handle bugs. Bugs has like impact and also have severity and impact. Pretty much, you also need to prioritize what's the severity of the concrete technical debt and what is potential impact. And based on this, you can prioritize and make like an organized execution of resolving this technical debt. Because some is more like, some is less impactful, and not only like from the technical perspective. What important here is from the business perspective, like what it could potentially means for the future of my business. This is like my personal approach. It could help, or maybe it will be useful for someone.
And I don't know, is anyone familiar with the black duck? Okay, yeah, me too. So sorry, but looks like it's something. But talking about static analysis, so sometimes when you, for example, when rules are too strict, you have a lot of like noise. And I don't know, if you see, I don't know, 5,000 problems in your code, of course you will say, oh, okay, I will not fix all of those bugs. I will, I don't know, maybe I will put some ignore or something like this. So what is the silver bullet? What's the rule of thumb of like making static analysis tool is making it super strict, and you will have 5,000, 10,000 million of errors, or / make it not that strict, but you have a chance to skip something.
Yep, I may start because I already mentioned that our PMD tool basically prevents developers from writing code which doesn't match special rule, which is coded into the PMD checks. But yeah, we try to get rid of any cases of rule violations. But at the same time, we definitely have exception mechanics, and sometimes you use it. For instance, you have to hotfix the issue in production. For instance, you have been attacked and under DDoS attack. You have no time to think about these rules. You have to deliver new code to production and do it fast.
Interesting. So you're saying that like this thing. So how it builds? So can you push to repo, or can you deploy some code without this without static analysis?
So the check will pass anyway, but you may leave a special marker that analyzer should skip this row, this method, or whatever else.
I see. Pavol, you wanted to say something?
Yes. Well, some time ago, we ran a sonar analysis on a very old, like 20 years old, big production system. And it told us that there is 1,000 of foundings. And the funny thing that it is also calculating the amount of technical debt, and it was in terms of like thousands of man days. So in this case, it's really no point in fixing those, just to prevent from getting new ones. So basically, we set the sonar up that all the further pull requests will make sure, and the code review will make sure that there will be no new technical debt. But it really depends, like what is your setup of rules in sonar, because what is sensible for some systems, for older system, it might not make sense. So you really need to like fine tune those rules to make sure that really applicable also for you. And it's if you got a large bank enterprise, it's better if your application look kind of similar. If you got a huge heterogeneous systems, every system is different, then it's kind of difficult to prepare like single profile in Sonar, and you need to have more, and it's more difficult to manage that. And in this case, Sonar is really producing more technical debt. And one last thing is about false positives. Even the best setup in Sonar is producing false positives. False positive, it's a warning that it's a finding, which is not really a real thing. You need to investigate that, spend time on that, and in the end, you decide that it's okay. You are not going to fix that. And with false positives, you need to decide which strategy to employ. One strategy is that you got teams, you believe in those teams, and they will use Sonar just as a helper. It will pinpoint some potential defects, and they will decide whether to fix that or not. And or you don't trust your teams, and in this case, you really, for example, if you got a team of juniors, you really need to make sure that they will investigate every single issue. The Sonar review is really mandatory, and they will need to take care of that, and you will need to watch that closely.
Okay, to wrapping up, because according to latest research, people cannot focus online more than 40 minutes, like watching videos or whatever. So, and we're already here for 50 minutes. So, okay, we're on the stage when we have metrics, we have some detection, we know our technical debt somehow, but how to solve it? Like, okay, we know that we have something, and we have several questions in chat. And Vasily is asking, what do you think? What is the most appropriate way to pay technical debt? To give overvaluated estimates, for product features, like, okay, Mrs. Product, we will complete this code in 3 weeks, but actually it's 1 week. But you have to, you're spending 2 weeks for refactoring, and use remaining time to pay tier debt or plan tier debt distinct from the product feature. So you have like a cleanup sprints or some cleanup Saturdays to work on that. I don't know, Shelley or Nick.
Yeah, you want to
Shelley,
go
go
ahead?
ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's sad if you have to trick the people to give you time for it. But unfortunately, we've all probably worked in environments where that's true. I would say a better way would be to train your management and stakeholders to want to have you reduce technical debt, because it ends up costing the company money, way more money than it should if you don't reduce it. So in each iteration, planning to do some amount of payback is a good plan. And if you need to support that argument by putting a calculation on it, there are actual numbers and estimates on how much it costs a company if you continue to accumulate it. You can't turn around fixes fast enough to your customers. You can't do things because you have this. So if you're not proactively chipping away at it and including it as part of the budget, you're costing the company money. And so that's a valuable argument to use.
About those numbers, so you mean like you have exact numbers on what's the price for supporting this feature or that feature, and you can like calculate the technical debt according to these numbers?
I think there are numbers around the defect escape analysis, and if you can correlate that you've had this type of defect escaping out of this component because it needs to be refactored and improved, that if you catch something in development, it's very little cost. If you catch it in a code review, it's the least amount of cost. If you catch it with your static analysis tools, great. But as it goes out and further out, if you don't catch it until it's at a customer site, it's extremely expensive. It's factors of 10 as you move away from the point where it was a defect was added. And if defects occur because you have technical debt, because it's not easy to read the code, it's not easy to understand what a change will cause and percolate out, then there are costs. So I know that there are papers around this that put numbers, but we also feel it, right? If I have something that escapes to a customer and I have to have service engineer or support engineer plus a developer plus someone else look at the issue, the more people involved, the more time it takes, and you're potentially making that customer very unhappy. And potentially losing customers because they're starting to worry that something is up. These are all things a company should want to avoid.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, yeah, it's a good idea because you know what was the cause. You can, I don't know, mark this module or something like this. You know SLA, or like you can just calculate from start to finish, from bug to solution to fix, and you know these numbers. Nick, you wanted to add to this. So yeah, what about this case when you have to elaborate on technical debt?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, I really agree with Shelley on this point. And I think Evgeny, when he was previously calling, he was already discussing this. From my perspective, to be honest, like handling the technological debts, it's not that much like a process issue. It's more a cultural / communicational issue in company. And like, as between the business and the development itself, as in a development itself, again, do development do Boy Scout rules, for example? Do we have a tendency to improve things in our culture of IT? Another thing, do our business understand what it does mean? That's why I was mentioning that, for example, my personal approach is to also have like impact from business perspective, not only also like that's gonna slow down the request for whatever milliseconds it is. And I was also wanted to add something really smart on another point, and I forget it.
Oh, it happens for me all the time. Denis, I know that's in Wrike. You practice some peer code review, and Yermik is asking, can you guys elaborate a bit on peer code review? So, what do you think? Can peer code review solve technical debt, or it's like just completely other instrument?
I would say it can and it can't at the same time, because on code review, you may give feedback to the developer regarding the scope that he touched, right? So you may ask him to clean up some code next to his changes or her changes and stuff like that, but it's like really limited. So the impact is not so big. And answering the question how to deal with business, how to get rid of technical debt, so how to build this process, it was answering the question, what is the size of technical debt? Because if it is a small one, for instance, you can put it into the quota of working on technical stuff, which is demand of tax strike. So you can just plan it. So our engineers are responsible to keeping this backlog, and they put such task into the new sprints. You can deal with that. But if you work with a huge piece of legacy, you can't handle it in this 10% of your sprints. Definitely can't. And here we need clear argumentation. What is going on there? What is the problem? What are costs of changes there? For instance, if all the developers who developed such huge piece of code left and no one touched it for years, it might be a problem, an onboarding problem. It will take a lot of time. And here, I suggest to do the simple things that Nick already mentioned. It's all about collaboration. You have to talk with your business. You have to understand the priorities. If you know that you will touch feature X in 1 quarter, provide information about possible technical debt there in advance. So in a quarter, when you start working on that, it will be already included in your plans. If you will deliver that knowledge only right before the actual work, so your business will be really surprised, and the business will be definitely against working on technical debt. So we can plan the huge work only as a project, and you can do it only if your business is aware about that, and you can collaborate with him and agree on changes.
Nick, you wanted to say something, right?
Yeah. And also we're forgetting, I don't know, I'm joking. Denis already mentioned like a few points. There was like a question from the audience, like how should I present, like how should I communicate, should I lie about like the size of an issue to swap under the carpet the resolution of the technological debt. Well, firstly, no, because like what we're talking about is exactly building a trustworthy culture between one party and another and everyone in the company, and that's definitely not building a trust in your company, like hiding something under the carpet. And the second, yeah, like the best solution we found is what Denis was mentioning, is like have allocated percentage of your sprint for the technological depths. Again, this percentage is actually really dependent on what kind of system you're working. For example, if it's going to be a legacy system, it definitely will be higher than for the new one. There is like such concept, like another possibility, there is such like fixing sprint, so let's say maintenance sprint. But from my point of view, it's also far from preferable options, because this means that you stop doing your business, like you stop delivering something, some value to a customer, and this is really stressful for a business or for a company to do such things. And this is actually already like a edge case, but that actually points out that something not happening periodically in your company to maintain and to contain the technological debt, let's say.
Pavol, and when you answer, I have one question for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is that it really depends whether you are doing projects or products. I mean, some time ago, we were the project-based company. Basically, we were running projects with the project managers, and it is about the mindset. Project manager got a set of business requirements, a short budget, and what he really wants is to deliver, and he really doesn't care about any maintenance. He just project finishes, he moved away with some bonuses, and that's it. So what often happened is that the technical debt was tremendous. Everything was like quick and dirty fixes, and it was terrible. Our company moved from project delivery to agile development to product owners, and it really changed. I mean, product owner at the moment, they are really aware that they are not moving away. I mean, they have to live with the product. They need to develop the product, and also they need to sanitize technical debt. And the situation is really like 100 times better right now. I mean, if you are living in a project-based delivery, what options you got? You can really like convince your project manager and convince him to spend some time, some budget for sanitizing, for cleaning the technical debt. But if it won't work out, I mean, you can really try what someone was suggesting, like to implement business features and to give some padding to your to your estimates. However, I recommend like more talking to the business, explain it to them, and not hide the things. And for agile-based delivery, I recommend like assign some allocation, 20%, 10%, really depends on the situation, and to make a list of technical debt, prioritize it, and try to fix it within the sprints. And also, you can discuss that on retrospective. I mean, all the Scrum, Agile, they got some tools for discussions, some ceremonies, and so on, which you can take advantage of them.
And I wanted to ask a question. So what's the name of the cat?
The cat behind me, actually, she doesn't have a name. I call her, she's a cat.
Yeah, really simple. It happens with developers. Yeah, right. Hey, developer, develop something for me. And but actually, frankly speaking, what do you think? So in the team, and for example, this team, just this imaginary team, works on the feature for a long period of time, and you are getting used to some code, and because chaos ruling the universe, so everything everything will return to chaos, and something can happen with the code. So if you work on some code for a while, you're kind of getting used to these small things, to these small like imperfections. And in this case, how to not to decrease your quality, your like internal gut feeling. I don't know.
Such silence.
Well, I will say that it is hard to teach old dogs new tricks, and make changes, especially if people are comfortable in their debt. I've been experiencing that, trying to move teams to using processes that are lighter, and been surprised to meet some resistance to that, but understanding that people don't want necessarily to have to change something they've been doing for 10 years. And sometimes it's fun to be able to say, well, I gotta wait, look at this thing's gonna take 2 hours, so I'm gonna go do something else. So there are times where you may have to demonstrate the value of something, and then you may have to be patient and wait for 6 months for everyone to see the demonstration to move something forward. But it's definitely real what you've described.
And Marek is saying that the one for significant contribution into technical debt is developers' experience. And I remember one story. I was reviewing some code of one developer, and all the variables were like A, B, C, and other like one letter. And I told him like it's not really convenient, you know. I'm like, okay, but it's one letter. It is super convenient for me. Like, okay, so this variable B, what does it mean? What is that? I'm like, okay, this is that and that. And then we looked at the code like he wrote like half a year ago, and I asked, okay, so this C variable, what does it mean? I'm like, I don't know. So, and yeah, sometimes we're getting used to some weird things.
Yeah, you gotta give kudos to that developer. They have obfuscated the code for you without having to.
Minification.
But that's a good point you make, because what I do notice too is senior developers versus brand new developer onboarded into a project. If you've improved the process or the developer experience to something new, better, and that has less friction, it's very welcome by the new developers in your project, and it's pushed back against by the senior people who sometimes who maybe like their old ways. So that's a good thing to note if you're trying to change your culture, to find one or to spend some time with the senior developer to, actually show them stuff. They might not want to ask questions to appear like they don't know things, so they get left behind as you move forward with an improved environment. But
yeah, Pavol, please.
Yeah, I mean, since we are in a Java environment, basically it really depends on the architecture. I mean, technical debt in code is really like terrifying, but what terrifies me even more is architectural debt, design debt. And with microservices architecture, I mean, you can really deal with that in an elegant way. If you build your microservices very small, you really don't have to worry about like whether they are written according to Sonar rules or not, because if you feel like that there is a technical debt for some reason, you got a lot of bugs there, you can rewrite them from scratch because they are small. So I would recommend to stick with the small services, with small microservices, and it also is kind of way how to deal with technical debt on this level.
But yeah, sorry, I wanted to bring one analogy. Is it true that, like, okay, let's example that one monolithic huge application is a pile of shit. Sorry, it's internet, I can say shit. But does it mean that microservices is just little piles of shit, but actually overall it's the same, or not?
I mean, if you got good architecture, I mean, overall good architecture of microservices, they are really decoupled. In that case, those microservices are really independent. Their technical debt is existing, but manageable. And if you go to the point that some of the service is really acting up, you just rewrite that and it will be cheap. So really pay attention to the making like no bonds between these microservices, like really decouple them a lot, and you'll be fine.
Well, if I can
add
a bit more, I would not actually completely agree with Pavol on this topic. And Evgeny, just for analogy, if we're talking about shit, well, usually if the monolithic application is just a pile of shit, the microservices is more like a shit spread across the board. That's how I can imagine this. Because yes, actually the main message about the microservices, they moving the complexity from the code up to architecture. And what you end up with is like, yeah, in theory, if you have a really well-defined and really decoupled architecture and you're really a Netflix, which is rarely the case, and you have Google engineers like at your hand and a lot of investment, this is possible, let's say. But to achieve this then, it requires immense effort on architectural level. And what actually often happens is that you don't have technological depths, but you have a lot of architectural depths. And then you just move in one thing to another. And that's what actually quite often happens with microservices architecture. So there's a lot of, let's say, promises from this architecture, but only on component level, it looks really good. What Thompson is just like needs to remember that it actually goes on a level above this. From my perspective, my personal opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would definitely agree. I mean, if you got microservice architecture, it needs to be really like very well defined. Otherwise, you're just moving the problem from technical point of view to the architecture point of view. I wouldn't agree more. And what we are doing actually at the KB, we had a huge monolithic system with as an internet banking, and it had a lot of technical debt. It existed for 20 years, and it hit some limits. That's normal. And we're now trying to do microservice architecture, and really, I totally wouldn't recommend to go with microservice architecture without either previous knowledge or really good understanding of the problematics, because it's totally complex, but it got a lot of benefits. It's really huge. I mean, you don't really have to be Netflix. I mean, there are a lots of good examples, even in Czech Republic, of good microservice architecture. And from what I see, like how we are building the microservice architecture right now, it's challenging, but it's all manageable. I mean, stay focused on the architecture, and you can then be less focused on the code.
Denis, what do you think about this approach, like microservice? We're going to the, I know that this is kind of holy war question, but again, what do you think about this microservice approach?
Basically, I agree with both of the points from Pavol and from Nick. I absolutely agree that you basically shift possible debt from code to infrastructure, but at the same time, infrastructure may solve some issues on like systematic level, if it's the right word. So having microservices really small is really good solution to technical debt, because as Pavol said, we can just easily replace it. But if in order to keep that, we need to think about keeping these microservices really micro. And if you have a lot of microservices, thousands, millions, it might be a problem on infrastructure level. But that day when we will face such issue, I believe one more type of architecture will appear, and all of us will be migrating from microservices to this one.
Yeah, hipsters reinvented. They said, okay, we implemented a pile of microservices and we will call it macroservice or monolith. And Denis, one like provocative question to you. So we have one question from the chat. Where it is? Player programming. Oh, I lost it. No, I haven't. Yeah, from Yermek. So are solid design patterns learning curve them? Okay, does are those things helping with their depth? And provocative question. Just we all know that Java is kind of like have a lot of words and a lot of patterns and factories of factories of factories. And what do you think? Is again returning to the first question, is language somehow force you to write more code, and it means that you will write more architectural and technological depth? Just imagine some, okay, I don't know, if you write something in Lisp or Clojure or any other like another languages, they are not that many words in them, or it's completely untrue and it's up to developer. You are muted. Second mark on the wall.
Okay, I will get 5 definitely, and then you can cross it. So I have a kind of provocative answer for that. If in Java world you will throw away a bunch of fabrics and stuff like that, these design patterns one over another, in the JavaScript world you will throw away mess of non-readable code, and that's it. And answering the question from the chat, I really think that knowledge of solid patterns and design patterns is essential, in not only in Java world, but in any language, in any system, because one of the aspects of technical debt. So one of the types of technical debt which appears when you don't know that you produce technical debt. So if you do it without knowledge, one day when you learn it, you will realize that a lot of stuff that were done now is absolutely technical debt and need to be rewritten. So avoid that, get some knowledge and use it.
Really nice words. And we're getting closer to the end of the discussion because, yeah, it's already time. Maybe what if we will share one advice or anything to our listeners, how to deal with technical debt, how to be happy in this world of technical debt? Because I have a feeling that as a developer, when you just touch your keyboard, you're already there, you're already in the technical debt. And it is not for a perfectionist. It is really painful to write something and you know that it's not perfect and it's never going to be perfect. I don't know, Shelley, maybe you can start.
Yeah, sure. A piece of advice: understand the problem you're trying to solve first before you write the code to solve the problem. That's always a good start.
Yeah, that is really true. Gentlemen, would like to add? Pavol, maybe?
Okay, I mean, it's pretty hard to just pinpoint one single item. I mean, there are many. Maybe communication with the business, I find it kind of crucial, and really adjust your strategy towards technical debt with your organization. I mean, it's different. If you're a startup, you manage it differently than if you are a huge enterprise, and just select your strategy wisely. That's all.
Nice.
Yeah, it's hard to add something when the major aspects are already highlighted, but continuing as continuation of my topic with engineering culture, I encourage engineers to keep this engineering culture in a good level. I encourage them to have a technical debt, not technical debt, just technical backlog, have a collaboration with the business, as Pavol said, and don't be scared to suggest some things. So this 10% quota appeared not because we know that we should do that. It appeared because one day it was suggested. So maybe you'll find the best way for your team to deal with technical debt, and it will be the best solution that we even don't know today.
And maybe closing word from Nick. One price.
From the technical person, like how to handle my advices would be is definitely set a really strong culture around it. This is, like I was mentioning from my perspective, this is a cultural thing. Firstly, secondly, build a trust with your business. This is absolutely crucial. And thirdly, evaluate impact of the technical depths, not only from the technical perspective, but majorly from the business perspective, what it has impact on your product or service. So you can effectively communicate it to business and so build a trust with them.
Really nice advice. And I would say, remember the rule of plumber. So all the time when new plumber comes to my apartment and like opening these doors and like, oh, what a mess. Come on. Like what a shitty plumbing work. And who's done that? And I'm like, oh, it's you. But half a year ago. And this is the rule of plumber. So yeah, of course, it's always you're never gonna write perfect code, but you should kind of want to do that. Strange advice, but yeah, it happens. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. It was a pleasure to have you here, dear viewers, dear guests, Pavol, Shelley, Denis, Nick. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure again. And see you in the next one, hopefully next month or maybe tomorrow. Who knows? Keep subscription, press the bell. I don't know, all these bloggers, they saying like all these things. I don't know. Thank you very much. Have a great evening and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.